One's live with us here.
All right, so we are live on Instagram, is that true?
And soon we'll be live other places too. Instagram watchers, if you are really interested in the full presentation, you won't be able to see all of the slides we'll show, but you'll be able to hear us talking and see the information we present that way.
Splendid.
All right, we are live on Facebook and YouTube.
Wonderful.
Wow,
Hey, we're live. We're at a table.
Let's introduce ourselves.
All right. Hi, I'm Jeff.
And I'm Paige. And together we are
Jeff and Paige.
We are very excited to be here with the City of Boulder Climate Initiatives to answer your most pressing questions about compost and the changes that are happening. And I'd love for everyone to briefly introduce yourselves, and then Jeff and I are going to do a little presentation, and then we'll get right into those questions. Let's start here.
Hi, I'm Emily Freeman. I'm with Climate Initiatives, and we've got Oscar, who loves compost.
And I'm Sandy Briggs on the Circular Economy team here in Climate Initiatives.
Hi everyone, Jamie Harkins, and I'm a Sustainability Senior Manager managing the team here that works on circular economy.
Hi, I'm Leah Kelleher. I lead communications for the city's Climate Initiatives team and work with all these lovely humans to get the word out about compost.
And Jeff and I, we are children's musicians that educate through music about science and nature. And the City of Boulder Climate Initiatives and the Circular Economy crew is one of our sustainability partners. And when we saw what was going on, we just knew we wanted to jump in and see what we could do to help people understand these changes. Do you want to add anything?
I'll just add, in just a moment, you're going to see some slides, some photos, and some short video clips. We went this past Thursday to see what was happening at A1 Organics, where the municipal compost ends up here in the city and county of Boulder. And it was very enlightening, I think.
That's right. Maeve, when you're ready, could we see that first slide? So we're going to start off. Jeff and I, we don't work for the city. And so we wanted to head out and just see what was going on. And so we have some clips to share with you from our visit to A1 Organics. Whenever you're ready for that next one, I'm ready. Maeve. One moment, check small technical difficulty. Okay, can you make that bigger?
Yes.
Or smaller? All right, so on the left-hand side, you can see a picture of clean compost. And on the right-hand side, you can see a picture of contaminated compost. Jeff and I were very curious to see this for ourselves. And so we headed out to meet with Clinton from A1 Organics, and we got a tour. Can you head to that next slide? And we already said this, but we wanted to learn about the issue firsthand. You can keep going, Maeve. Yeah. Oh, no, the picture first.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Back one. So there I am experiencing, can you remember what that was called, the pile?
Windrow.
Windrow, thank you.
Wow,
I knew it was
Jamie.
row, but I can't remember. There's all these rows of the compost that has been brought in. And you can see, even from this picture, how much contamination is there. And do you want to add anything?
I'll just say, if you can't see it as well, it was mostly small bits of plastic, a lot of plastic bags.
We're going to show them much closer up though, so we can do the next one, which is a video. So it was really windy.
Large quantity, so if there's contamination in there, which you guys can obviously see at this moment, it's really challenging to get this out. We don't have manual sortation. We don't have machines that pre-sort this material. The easiest and the most effective way to remove contamination is at the beginning, at the source of generation, because smaller loads, easier to identify, easier to see, you can get it out. And when you don't get it out and you leave it in the bin, it ends up here. It's gonna get, well, I'll show you some more video of this, but it's gonna get ground up into smaller pieces, which is then gonna spread all over the place. And it contaminates the site. It's hard to contain. It gets lofted up in the air, blows around. As you can see, it's really challenging. And we're at a point where diversion is increasing, contamination has increased. We have to eliminate contamination because it's affecting these natural resources. These are amazing natural resources that are turned into compost, which is a soil amendment, which can be put back into Colorado soils.
Mhm.
It will retain more water in Colorado soils. It will pull carbon out of the air and put it back into the soils. It makes healthier plants. You can grow healthier plants. You can have healthier food. It's all connected. It's a circular loop. And we have to protect these materials.
So that's Clinton. He might be the most passionate compost lover I've ever met in my entire life. And he literally is living and breathing this issue and also the solutions. So one of the things he said that's really important to understand is that what we're trying to do is create a closed loop. And one of the issues that's happening is that with this contaminated compost, it's not being able to fully go around the circle because that compost isn't fully processed. Those contaminated materials aren't fully processed. And unless you want to add something, the next slide I think says some more.
Yeah, go for
Next
that
slide.
next slide, because I think we'll see some of what that contaminated compost looks like after processing now.
Okay, so this is a picture of.
Here, let me talk about
yeah.
that one. I thought that was interesting. Clinton specifically pointed this one out. This is a wreath, and it is approximately 90% compostable. Those are boughs made out of, I think, spruce needles. Pine cones, all great for composting, but it's held together by this wire mesh. And then additionally, you can see it's got some fake red plastic berries. So when something like that is thrown in, it would have to be physically removed by hand, that mesh and those berries. So 90%, even 97, 8, 9, 99% is not enough. It's got to be all compostable.
So we saw everything from, next slide when you can, Maeve, from this sort of honest mistake possibly to just full bags of dirty diapers.
Mhm.
So that was pretty shocking to me.
Yeah.
I had seen a video of that on the website of A1 Organics, which you can definitely go to, lots of resources and information there. But to actually see this and see multiple instances of this was kind of a wake-up call for me. And then let's do the next slide. Jeff, do you want to explain what you're holding there?
Certainly. So behind me is a compost pile.
That is finished.
That is finished, but it is not usable. It cannot be brought to end market. We can't put it back into our gardens, into our farms, because all of those contaminants, little pieces of plastic and glass as well, are being ground up, and the compost was full of it. I could pick it out like little shells at the beach. And you can see by my face that I am not pleased to have found so much.
So in addition to beautiful finished compost, which does exist there, but is coming from different sources, there are these giant rows of compost that is just unusable because we would not want to be putting that on our food, on our landscapes, and honestly eating those little pieces of microplastics. Let's see this video. I'm scooping up a sample of this finished compost with a bunch of contamination in it. So this is the compost that A1 Organics cannot use, cannot bring to end market because there's so much contamination. And you don't have to take my word for it. You can come check this out. We're going to have this sample and another one at our table all summer long for you to check out. You can go straight to the next slide. So, what about
Compostable bags.
and serviceware? Oh, there's a typo there. I apologize. Like compostable forks, cups, plates, etc. Here is what we learned. And then maybe if you want to, you could probably put us back on the screen because we don't have pictures for this one. We're just going to talk for a second, and then we'll go back to the slideshow. So Jeff,
Here we are.
this was probably the biggest learning that I got. Do you want to start with compostable bags or with the serviceware?
Sure, I'll start with the compostable bags.
Because wait a second. People are like this. Show me your angriest face right now. This is what people are like right now about these compostable bags. I mean, like I mentioned that we're working on this project and people's faces change. And they're like, why can't I put my bags in?
So we saw firsthand quite a few of the green compostable bags, which are in fact compostable, but they are hiding contamination. And so we cracked into a few of those bags and found many things that do not belong in there. So that was the issue with those giant, large compostable bags, is that they were hiding a bunch of things that cannot be composted.
So really important to understand. This facility, totally possible to compost compostable bags, not a problem.
Mhm.
You're gonna see a clip in a minute of how hot this gets. But those bags hide contamination. So they don't know what's in there, and like that bag of dirty diapers came in one of those green compostable bags. How about the reusable serviceware? Because this one was also, it wasn't a straight line for me to understand it. Do you want to take a stab?
I'll just start by saying that we expected to see a bunch of these single-use compostable ware, and we talked to Clinton about it, and he said those things are able to be composted. You can step in.
They are able to be composted just like the compostable bags. However, there's so many lookalikes on the market.
Mm-hmm.
So just having, I wish I had one that I could show you right now, having a cup that composts perfectly, great, and it went in the right place, great, no problem. But what's happened is that there's all these companies out there that are putting out lookalike products that say they're biodegradable, and they're not. There's additionally people that are just confused, and they're throwing things into the compost that are just not actually compostable ware. There's also a timeline for this compost. It needs to all break down within about 90 days. And some of those forks and spoons that are compostable, again, they are eventually compostable, but they don't fit within the time frame that's needed for this compost to be created.
And we did see some pieces of partially composted cutlery that is compostable, but not in that time frame.
And I would say, and the City of Boulder can jump in when we get a little further down our presentation, I think that the idea is that eventually we'll be able to put that stuff in again, hopefully. But right now we have to take a pause because there's too much stuff in there that's not supposed to be there.
It's cleanup time.
It's
Next
cleanup
slide,
time,
please.
it is.
Interlude music.
This is why it's not a good choice. Sorry. This one, yeah?
Yeah, that
All
looks
right.
great.
There we go.
All right, this one is also in process, but looking closer to a finished product. And I am digging down in here and feeling the heat. It is almost too hot to touch. This is beautiful,
Oh my gosh, wow.
right?
Yeah.
This feels like something you'd be really psyched to put into your garden, your home, and your food system.
And it just happens that heat is
Oh my
generated
gosh, it's so
through the
hot.
natural process of composting.
I can't touch that
So
anymore.
beautiful.
Get back to
Maybe you could go to the next slide. So here I am in my farmer costume on the usable, beautiful end product of compost that also exists at A1. And I went in real life and bought myself some bags of A1 compost to complete the loop over at Harlequin's Gardens this weekend. There's other places you can buy it as well. You can do the next slide. So while we work on helping to clean up the stream and clean up the site, here is what we need to put in the compost and what we need to keep out. Do you want me to speak?
I do not.
That is a graphic. You can see
That
it other
yes.
places too.
That is speaking for itself.
It is speaking for itself. Go ahead. You can just probably go to the next slide. And then this is what we want to put in. It's pretty simple for now. Yard waste.
And food scraps.
Anything I'm missing there, City of Boulder?
No.
So
No, that's it.
we're cleaning up the site. We're taking a pause. That's the big shift in my perception of what's happening right now. You can go to the next slide.
Mhm.
So we can have a flower like this one.
Now this is something I can really sink my roots into. Woo! It feels good to have some nice compost.
I'm very certain to be sure that you understand you cannot plant plants straight in compost. It needs to be added to
It
your
is a soil
It
amendment.
is a soil amendment.
Next
Just in case.
slide.
And then the next video, and not a flower like this one.
This terrified the A1.
Contamination.
And then the next slide. So let's talk to some more experts and get our questions answered. You can close out of the slideshow. That's all I've got. And we have some questions that people sent in ahead of time, and then we have some that are being asked live. Which way should we go?
We do. Let's go ahead and get the live ones in, and then we'll, because those are coming in pretty fast, and then we'll switch to.
And Maeve, can we get a sense of how many questions we have, just so we can get an idea of
Yeah,
many?
so it looks like we have right around 10 right now.
10? Okay, perfect.
Cool. Okay, so our first question comes from Daryl, and it is, how would you encourage backyard composters to curbside compost?
That's a good question. I mean, we're encouraging backyard composting as well. I mean, I don't think we have a value judgment that one's better than the other. In fact, in a lot of ways, in your backyard, you can still compost your paper napkins, things like that. I just happened to tune into the county's been running some workshops on backyard composting, and I watched the other night, and it was super interesting. So it's all sort of what works for each individual household. You know, I'm really lucky to have a backyard where I could put a compost bin in, but a lot of folks in Boulder don't. So I think if you just don't want to deal with the upkeep of managing your backyard bin, the curbside option is super convenient. We have lots of tips and tricks about how to do that without a bag. I know, I've just stopped using them. I just fill the little bin and dump it outside, but I don't know.
And that's what we've always done, to be totally honest, because we're cheap.
Yeah.
I've never wanted to buy the green bag, so we never have.
There's also a few, if you don't have a backyard, there's a few in-home, smaller scale compost techniques that you can do. One that's really easy, it's just like 2 5-gallon buckets, is called bokashi composting. You do have to buy like the starter stuff for it, but there's a couple things. If you Google it and you do some quick research, little DIY smaller projects that you can do in like an apartment, or a smaller home that might not have a backyard.
And another thing about those small systems, I'm not a bokashi expert, but some of the smaller countertop systems that you can buy or you find on Amazon and other places don't officially make compost. They're more like dehydrators that can be then added to your backyard compost bin, but they're not officially composters, because composting actually takes time. It takes those 90 days to actually create the microbes and for the science to happen for composting to occur.
But I guess I would just finish up saying, I think maybe the intent behind this question is, we are trying to design, you heard me mention we're the circular economy team at the city. And so we are trying to design and accelerate these larger circular systems in our whole region, our whole state, and here in Boulder. And so I will say that if folks are able to contribute the right kinds of materials in their curbside bin, that really helps us, because it creates a really great product at A1. And then what we're doing is working to get that product back to the farms, back to our landscapes, where it can sequester soil. So
let's all make a circle.
Yeah, circle.
That's fun.
Yeah, so if you can use all that backyard compost, awesome. But if you can't, because you don't have that much, put it in the curbside bin so we can create these loops in our community and help mitigate climate change.
All right, and our next question comes from Jason. What's the yard waste bag update?
I asked you that question today. Is that
Yes.
information accurate?
As far as I know, Clinton didn't have time to get to confirm, but the last information we have on that is that The paper yard waste bags will be allowed a couple of times a year during spring and fall cleanups, but that's all. Those dates are yet to be determined. Some haulers, however, are allowing them year round, and they're taking it upon themselves to dump those bags themselves and not send those bags to A1 and only send the materials instead. So,
And the reason behind that, I'm assuming it is the same reason as the compostable bags. It hides contamination and people just aren't being careful enough about what goes in there.
So check with your hauler to be sure.
right.
But that is the situation as of now.
All right, and our next question comes from Daryl. So in MA yard waste, or can
Massachusetts.
maybe, oh, sorry. This is why I should not be reading this. Okay. Massachusetts yard waste can be put into the commercial compost, but not grass unless it's certified organic. Oh, I apologize. That's part of my comment, but
Okay.
back to
Thanks,
Jason
Daryl.
for a moment.
That's great, Daryl.
So for now, what are restaurants doing in Boulder? Are they just recycling and putting compost and trash for now? What are they doing?
Great question. So do you want to talk about it?
I
Sorry,
can,
I'm like,
yeah, no. So, yes, so a lot of restaurants are determining how to reestablish their kitchen systems and their disposal systems outside that will be able to allow composting to still happen, but just without the bags. It's a little trickier, and they're trying to figure out ways that work in their kitchens, and it's very personalized and separate for each restaurant as to how that's going to work. But it is something we're really encouraging that folks do, and we have some city partners at Partners for a Clean Environment that do advising at restaurants to try to help them to set up their systems to do maybe a 5-gallon bucket system without any bags, where they can just take that right out and dump it right into the compost cart. Maybe, if necessary, set up more frequent collections of their compost so it doesn't sit there and fester too much in the hot weather. There's a lot of ways that people are developing systems around still composting without bags and only collecting those valuable food scraps from kitchens.
So Sandy, would you say just in the for now part of that question, that it's a transition time and restaurants are all doing their own thing for a little bit?
It absolutely
Just to
is.
be totally clear.
Yeah, totally clear. They're all doing their own thing. It's going to be very individualized as how it works best for each restaurant. So,
I was gonna add as well, like composting is still happening in the back of the house. So like that's where the kitchen and prep areas are when plates come back. But what you're not seeing is the composting occurring in the front of the house. So if you're finished with a meal and it's a self-busing situation, what you're gonna see is recycling and trash, because there's just too many areas where there might be confusion or other items that you have with you, or chip bags that may have chips in it. But to help eliminate that confusion, the compost has been removed from the front of the house where we all eat and dine and socialize, but the composting is occurring from the collection of food scraps in the kitchen areas.
So that sort of connects to the compostable service where
Right.
so just again, with just full honesty, if I go get my takeout in compostable ware and I take it home,
it's trash.
I put it in the trash.
And
that's the
food
same
scraps can still, if you don't finish, if you got like a quarter of your sandwich and you're not going to save it for later, you can put that sandwich in there, but that container that you take home,
It's trash right now.
Yeah, I think it's really important to mention that, like, as a team and as the city, we are actually looking at this as an opportunity to really work with all of our food eateries in town to try and get them to switch over to reusable items. So let's compost the food, and then let's try to get rid of all the disposable stuff, no matter if it's recyclable or compostable. And so our team has been working really hard. We just launched an incentive to try and get businesses to switch over to reusable systems. So eat-in dining, takeout containers. We have lots of cool solutions developing and scaling. So we encourage all of you watching to go talk to the restaurants you frequent a lot and see if we can help them, use more reusable stuff.
I just want to do a quick plug. So we've been partnering with Deliver Zero, and they are at, I believe, 6 restaurants in Boulder at the moment. If you are on here and you want to learn more about Deliver Zero, you can just Google Deliver Zero or go to deliverzero.com. find out that restaurants in Boulder, they're also available in Denver at a few more restaurants. And they have a pilot going on at Whole Foods at their ideal market location in both Boulder and Denver as well. So you can try them out and see what it's all about. So
they are reusable to-go containers
Yeah.
that, just like you pay a deposit, a very small deposit, right?
So
And you bring it back again.
Yeah. So at Whole Foods, it is a full deposit system that is returned back to you. If you are dining at a restaurant or you want to like order your food to go. So I'm going to be going to Leaf and I want to place my order. So I would just go to their normal ordering platform and you click on choose to pack that in reusable containers. It's $1. It covers all of the containers. So if you're ordering one meal, it's $1. If you're ordering like 5 dishes, it's still just $1. And that helps cover those costs.
And then you return it when you're done.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody, let's make a circle again.
I have 3 in my car. I should have brought one. I have to return mine tonight.
One thing I would just add too is that, and this was mentioned, but compostables should go in the trash. I know that it's tempting to put them in the recycling bin because you don't want to put things in the landfill, but we really need you to be putting them in the trash just because it puts more pressure on our recycling systems. So yes, please don't wish cycle, put it in the trash.
Yeah.
So a few of our viewers today would like to clarify if countertop small green compostable bags cannot be used because we can't tell what's in it.
The countertop ones.
So they can. We, as a city, we've been encouraging folks just to skip the bags, just to make our messaging easy. But if you go to A1 Organics website, they do have a list on there of up to 3 gallon bags they will accept. They have to be CMA
approved,
which
and
is
they have
not
to
like a
fit in
super.
a bin this size.
Yeah. So it is the countertop size, but the ones I had at home weren't on the list. So you do have to be a little careful to make sure they're the right kinds. So that's our caveat. Like if you really need them, you can use the little 3 gallon ones, but please go to their website and check to make sure your brand is
We throw A1 Organics on
acceptable.
Thank you.
A lot of times you'll see BPI, and that was the old certification. So really make sure you're checking that it's not just BPI, but it is the CMA.
Yeah.
And just to alleviate any confusion, just go to the A1 website and look at the brands that they listed, and those are all okay as long as they're 3 gallons or smaller.
And just to speak to the visit to the compost, we had even more clips, and we'll be sharing those through our social media. So there'll be more story to tell from the Jeff and Paige point of view. But it was so windy there, and it's windy every day there almost, and it's hot. And I had compost in my ears. And so all of those little bags, they blow everywhere. And all of the plastic and all of the things that are light blow everywhere. And then, so that's obviously an issue in lots of ways. And one of the ways is just even the neighbors and them not wanting, no one's not wanting it, but being very aware that they want to be a desired part of the community, and things blowing around like those bags, not so hot, and they take a little bit longer to compost.
Yeah.
Okay. So our next question is from Megan. What about smaller haulers that have found alternative options to continue taking compostable products like clementine, curbside, lawn post scraps? Would those be something?
We have heard that A1 is allowing. Wow, your viewers are on it.
I told you
That's are on it.
Your constituents.
Yeah, they are. I love it. We love that you know about this. There are some smaller haulers that are able to control their stream, and they are working directly with A1 to accept some things we cannot accept with our larger haulers. I don't know if are any of them operating in Boulder?
The smaller ones,
Clementine?
not in any fashion that would affect our municipal stream at all. No.
Yeah, we don't. Not that we know of. They're not really collecting from Boulder residents or business. Maybe a couple of businesses. Honestly, we're not sure.
Okay. So our next question.
But yeah, just follow what your hauler says. Whoever your hauler is, just check with them.
Right.
Makes sense. Okay, so we've got a question from Freya. This seems like an opportunity to focus more on reducing and reusing. For example, since I can no longer compost tissues and paper towels, I'm definitely motivated to use fewer or none of them. Has this been part of the conversation on a city level?
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think you're going to see a lot of our messaging evolve over this year as we really focus on reducing waste and reuse. I know, I hate to admit it, but I had those like the cloth paper towels that someone gave me at home, and I like had to never use them. Man, I'm using them now because you're exactly right. Like, I don't want to throw away the paper towels, so I have the pile of cloth now by the sink, and it's going well. So yeah, I think you'll see our as we evolve our work and our messaging this year, you're going to see a lot more focus also from our partners like EcoCycle and Western. You're going to see much more focus on reducing how much waste you create in the first place.
Right.
And that is the first step, right? We all learned the 3-4 R's? How many? The reduce, reuse, recycle. Like, we kind of focus on recycle for very long, and now we really want to focus on those first couple.
And reuse saves you money too. And we all are experiencing, right? Inflation. It's a hot topic right now. Yeah, it's a great way to prevent stuff from going to the landfill and save money in the process.
As Jamie mentioned earlier too, in terms of city messaging, I'm trying to get to your point, Freya. We were running incentives, $2,000 for restaurants and similar entities to invest in durables, get washing machines, dishwashers in place so they have the ability to do that in-house. And we're offering $1,000 incentive to event spaces as well to try out our cup, which is a reusable cup, very prevalent at a lot of AEG facilities, and ways that you can experience that at, we're going to bring them to Band on the Bricks, and the city is also supporting our cup at the Wednesday Farmers Market. So come out and try it out.
Love that.
Yeah, I think it's really important that folks who want to see this kind of waste reduction in our community, whether it's Deliver Zero, our cup, and it's like a lowercase r period cup, to really come out and support these systems this summer, especially with our events, and really like communicate that to your friends, to event organizers, because it's a big transition for them as we work with folks. The status quo is hard to change sometimes. And so if you're excited about having a reusable cup at your like farmer's market beer garden, like really support that system and let folks know.
So a few of our viewers would like to clarify whether these changes or how they might be impacting compostable product companies, and if it's for better or worse, maybe discouraging them from continuing to invest in creating resources to solve these challenges.
Tough question, for sure. They're not having an easy time with it, obviously, but they are in talks with A1, I know. I don't know what those talks are entailing or what's coming out of them, but I personally feel like it's going to spur innovation in other areas that these companies might branch into. As to whether this is a permanent change, that's going to be up to how things get cleaned up at the site and if that reset is successful and whether or not they're going to accept them in the future. But for now, we can't really speak for those certified compostable product manufacturers because they're trying to figure out their business models around this, I think, right now.
There's also a bill that we are supporting at the state legislature right now. That's a true thing compostable labeling bill that would require that like truly compostable serviceware be like labeled with specific markings, words in the state of Colorado. So, we are in this cleanup phase, but should those items come back in the future, like that's a really, really important piece to make sure that the companies that you're talking about that are really investing, making the right kind of products can actually communicate that to you all. And you don't have to sit there trying to figure out if something is really compostable or not. So that's a bill we've been supporting too.
In addition to the compostable products having to be specifically labeled in specific ways, it also prohibits non-compostable products from using those same types of labels.
Yeah.
When we were at A1, one of Clinton's employees and his daughter, and I'm going to get this number wrong, but the person had been working there either for
45 years.
45 years. It was a man. He'd been working there for 45 years, and he went down to testify
Oh,
at that hearing. And
That's
Was it Bob?
I didn't get his name.
Tall guy, white hair?
No,
Okay.
Yeah.
it was Tino, I believe.
Okay.
Okay, so I think we'll go ahead and move to our pre-submitted
All right.
questions.
Would you write R.cup in the?
I did.
Oh, you did? I didn't
Oh,
see it.
on it.
I didn't see it. Sorry. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Ignore me. You don't need to do it if you did it. I just didn't see it.
I can't see
I was just looking at these beautiful people instead.
that.
It's actually a lowercase r.
Sorry.
I know I messed it up and I called it something else too, but I won't say it so I'm confused.
I think a Google search will still find it.
Yeah.
There.
Perfect.
Paige says to check out our dot cup, everybody. That is
Use a different font.
cup.
Alphabetical bold, please.
Great. So our first question, pre-submitted on social media, is from the coffee side. And they're asking, is this intended to be a long-term strategy or just temporary? And are we out looking for better solutions or just going for this one in the meantime?
Yeah, we're hoping it's temporary. We'll see. We don't have a time frame. I really do think it's important because I know one of the other pre-submitted questions is about this as well. Sort of like the landscape of solutions out there. I do think it's really important for folks to understand really, really quickly how we got here. We did used to have some facilities that could handle a lot of contamination. We had a really big facility called Heartland. It was out in Weld County they had big anaerobic digesters that could break down the contamination. Unfortunately, that site was shut down by the commissioners out there due to some neighbor complaints. And so it's still sitting out there, not operating. And then, Western used to compost on their facility. They shut that down, I think in 2017. Just the economics are really hard to make this all work. And then, we tried a few years ago to start a publicly funded, we've been partnering across the whole region, and we tried to start up a publicly funded compost site. And unfortunately, there's another question about like the finances of it all. It's actually less of a financial issue, more of a land issue. It's really, really hard to find land that's like central to all of our communities that like is okay to compost on. It is an industrial process. It's not super intensive, but like you were there, like, you need some empty space. And we found a site in Boulder County, but unfortunately, that site had some complications and the commissioners didn't approve that. So, it's been a really unfortunate series of events that have led us to having only one processor. And thank gosh we have A1 Organics to keep it rolling. But we do know that there are folks looking at solutions. We're looking at solutions with all of our city and county partners. I do think we'll probably end up somewhere where like there's a different solution for residential and commercial. Like commercial is always just naturally going to be a little more contaminated. So we're really talking with our partners and exploring funding opportunities and siting to see if we can create something separate for the commercial stream. So if, that sounds super short term, but that is, down the road, we're looking at like all this federal funding, seeing if we can explore that. So if we're able to find a new solution for the commercial stream, we can see some of these items come back, the serviceware, the bags. So yeah, a lot of this is to be determined, but please know that we are working really hard to try and find some more solutions, and that it, like I said, it's really less of a money issue and more of a land and siting and public support issue, frankly. So, I would just encourage everyone watching that when you hear, next year that we're looking at starting up a new compost solution, we really hope you'll come out and support it, and talk to your neighbors about supporting it, because we really do need folks to back up these facilities.
We're looking at these things on a regulatory level as well, and a policy
Yeah.
level, in that In Colorado currently, it's a really onerous and long and difficult, expensive process to permit what's called a class 3 facility, which is basically a landfill, but it also applies to composting facilities. And then there's a little tiny small exempt on farm composting that you can do without that permit, but there's nothing in between.
Yeah.
And this is something that we're working at on a policy state level as well as locally and regionally to try to create a class 2 or whatever you want to call it in between the conditionally exempt and the giant facility that's a little easier for compost. There's a lot of composters out there that want to compost and want to do this, and community composting is a big thing too, but you have limits to how much you can do in there as well. So it's a policy question that we're working on as well. So.
And then, of course, paired with all of that, which we've already talked about, is this move towards reuse and investing in reusables and having this shift in our community around that, making it cool to reuse, making it convenient and accessible. We're starting to see some of that come online. So I think we'd all in this room encourage folks to not just be thinking about composting right and the future of our compost system, but also how we can pair that with reuse. Because at the end of the day, like, we want to be preventing as much waste as possible. And all of these systems we're talking about require resources. Thank goodness we have them. But, you know, if we could be reusing more and more materials, we'd be preventing more and more emissions than anything else.
That's true.
So our next question is from Denise, and she would like to know, I've been specifically wondering about tea bags and paper napkins.
Nope.
Can we
Trash.
Yeah.
Put the tea inside.
So you could
right?
open up the tea bag.
At home, I am opening up
Yeah.
my tea bag, dumping out the tea leaves. Actually, I squeeze it, get all the liquid out, and then dump that in, and then I do trash my tea bag.
There are a
Or do
few.
loose leaf.
There's a few tea companies that make truly compostable tea bags, but it's the same issue with the forks and the knives. There are so many that have plastic nylons in them that, like, if we say you can put your tea bags in, we're going to get a ton of contamination from tea bags. So A1 is saying no tea bags, but you can, snip it open if you want and dump that.
Loose leaf tea.
Or
I'm
yeah.
gonna say, as an avid tea drinker,
Yes.
loose leaf and the manatee is your friend. So.
Can I
And
add?
there-
love loose leaf.
Also, just to tag onto that too, same goes for coffee filters.
Yep.
As in, we would love it if you composted your coffee grounds, but don't compost the filter, or better yet, buy a reusable one. I've been using the same reusable coffee filter in my coffee pot for a decade. And I bought a 2-pack then, and I'm still wondering what to do with the second one right now. So.
There was one other thing I didn't share during our presentation because the clip was too windy to show. But what another big learning that I got just from being at A1, and I'm really like into this and in the compost, like, I don't know if you could tell, but I really understand how one person can make a great difference and a really bad difference. Like, I am really good about composting, and whatever percentage I have of like, this could probably go in here, that's done for me after being there. It was so clear that there's thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of us all being like, this one little thing doesn't matter. I've been parenting all day. I'm exhausted. Oh, it fell in there. Oh, I'll leave it. I'm not going to do that anymore. It was shocking to see the amount of stuff that was there that should not have been there.
Yeah, it's such a good point because, you know, we have a really amazing,
Okay. Do you need help? Watch the light.
We're a family show here tonight.
Our daughter. Yeah. Hi.
Please continue.
It wouldn't be a Jeff and Paige event without.
I know, I love her.
She'd like a treat. Does anyone have a treat?
I have a treat.
I do.
Not have a treat.
Say hi.
Say hi.
Say hi to everybody.
Say make clean compost.
I was gonna say on the coffee filter thing, in my neighborhood, we're serviced by Republic Services, and they back down and I see them lift the lids and check to see what's in there. So the hauler is trying to like do their part, and they had to leave a little note on my neighbor's one that said, please no more coffee filters. So they're trying to be nice and to also give everyone reminders as well. So But you heard
That's
it here
really
first.
sweet.
No
Yeah.
profit
Yeah,
filters.
It's really nice.
It is nice.
Yeah.
But what you said, Paige, is so important because we have a world-class recycling facility here. But the difference is that they have a lot of technology. They have these really cool machines that can like deal with a certain level of contamination. They are getting more because, you know, a bunch of folks are now trying to like recycle their compostable cups. So as we said, don't do that. But compost just doesn't work that way. It gets ground together and it goes in those piles. So it is like really fundamentally different. And I think what you just said about like one person could really mess it up is very true with compost, especially because you saw it. It's just all going there mixed together.
And if you go to one side of the site, it's all the contaminated stuff. And then there's this other side of the site where they have the more commercial streams that are all working really well. And it feels like a totally different environment and place. And one side feels really, honestly, yucky. And then the other side, it smells good, it feels good. And just, I wish I could give you that sense experience, but feeling that and knowing that that's where we're headed, if we can make these changes, we need to make the circle again. Is that we're trying to close the loop and make compost that we can use. Because otherwise it doesn't, it's still a line. And we don't want lines anymore.
No lines.
I'm going to share a couple of comments that came in from our viewers, followed by a question that kind of addresses that. So first one is from Kelly McLean, who's wondering why, in short, we can no longer compost compostable products. And then our second comment is an anonymous comment saying, I don't understand why the city can't invest in better facilities and or management to accommodate for the hard to compost materials that are being processed, such as pizza boxes and even compostable cutlery and servingwares. It feels really backwards to me. While I don't feel like the waste management system is falling apart, I do think the city might not be committed enough to advancing our composting system with better resources like expertise and financial investment. What would you say to those comments, which are obviously reflecting maybe how a lot of people might be feeling, and what is the shortest way to kind of summarize why these changes have taken effect?
Well, the second comment is sort of what I was referring to earlier, that it is actually not, we're incredibly committed. Boulder is actually one of the few cities in the whole country that has funding. You know, we have a trash tax that funds this work. And we also have a universal zero waste ordinance. We're one of the only cities. So as I said earlier, it's less of a money issue and more of like a land issue. And so like we don't have a parcel of land in the city of Boulder that we could build a commercial compost facility on because of zoning rules and use tables and all that fun stuff that our city council works through. And so that's why we turn to our partners like the county. We've been talking to Longmont, you know, just folks that have land to see if we can create a facility. So like I said, yeah, it's not really a money issue. We've had incredible success the last handful of years at the state legislature. This is work we don't talk about enough with you all in the community. Like we supported the creation of the Forward Grant Program years ago that takes a little bit of your trash, your tipping fees, and it funds a grant program, a huge one, that goes to reducing waste in the Front Range. So all sorts of private companies, nonprofits, haulers, governments can apply to that fund to evict with really great projects. So there's a lot happening. So I would love to talk to anyone if they have more questions about it, but there's a lot of commitment among the whole region, even down in Denver. You all may have heard that Denver is bringing composting online after a ballot measure last year. So even Denver, we're talking to, how can we get more collaboration along the whole Front Range? But it is mostly like a land siting issue, actually. But yeah, we're looking at all options. And then
the other question was about the compostable products, which I feel like we already answered, but if you want to sum it up, anybody?
It's the lookalikes.
Yeah.
It's the imposters. Until truly compostable products are truly labeled as the only things that are compostable, there's always going to be imposters out there that end up in the stream and contaminate compost. So.
And then going to that individual person point, it's just taking more responsibility for not putting that stuff in there right now.
And that could be empowering too. Like the positive spin of that is your actions do matter. And sometimes it can feel like they don't.
Sure.
But in this case, they really matter. And so we can all, take that second to think before we throw, to think about our compost bin as a soil maker, and just, as you're putting stuff in it, think, would I want this in my soil?
Mhm.
And so, you can make a difference. I know for me, that's been like one of the bright spots in all this.
So in the spirit of leaving people with some resources tonight, I want to ask our final question, and I'll turn it over to Jeff and Paige to kind of close us out. But can you each kind of share one product or resource that has really helped you in this journey of sustainable living?
Who should start?
Ooh.
Let's start with Emily.
It kind of goes to what Jamie mentioned is I've got a bunch of, some of you may cringe, but it's a family show. I cloth diapered, and I have a whole bunch of reusable cloth washcloths that thank God we don't need anymore, really. And they're perfectly clean. They are sanitized, and we have them as hand towels, and we use them all the time in our house. So just bringing those cloth, little cloth washes. Oh my gosh, I can't speak because it's TV. So just bringing those out and saying, not that I'm just done here, but now I can keep using them. So it's a reuse.
If we're going full on sustainable, I already mentioned my reusable coffee filter, which I really love. And it's just a way that you don't even have to buy coffee filters, which are really resource intensive to make to begin with too. But along those lines too, I tend to use a shower timer when I do my showers in the morning to make sure I'm not showering for longer than 5 minutes, so I can save as much water as possible.
I need short hair.
And I only wash my hair, not often, so that helps. But
Oh, so good. So I don't know the brand. The brand of the like reusable paper towels I have, I think it's like Marley something.
Is it the Untel?
I'm not sure. There's a bunch of them out there, but I would really encourage you to. The key to it is like a system. So I have them by the sink, but then I had to like find a basket to put them. Like you need a system to make it work in your household. And so they were winding up all over the house, and it was driving me crazy. So we had to implement a system to really make it work. And then I've been really, really trying to support the reusable systems we're putting into place in town. Like I am going out of my way to order food and deliver zero and go to Ideal Market and support it. And now it's really changing that consumption picture. Like when we go to order takeout, I'm starting to think about what's it gonna come in? And just knowing I don't have an option to like compost that container really changes the dynamic. So I think as a household,
Yeah, it was a little bit of a like get out of jail free card.
like bring your own containers and silverware and cups everywhere you go.
Yeah, so like we're really committed to like trying to support these systems that Boulder is working to scale. So
Well, I kind of have two things. One is EcoCycle's A to Z recycling guide. I've got it on my phone as an app. Would encourage downloading it because it's got a ton of good resources on it. You can essentially, it's like a Google pretty much any waste item, and it will tell you where it goes. So I love that. That's helpful on the go. Like recently, I was like, toothpaste tubes. Do I know where they go actually? Because sometimes they say recycle and they belong in the trash, and I've been doing that, so we're good. But the other piece, and Sandy just mentioned it, is bringing reusable fork, straw, bag, napkin. So I have like a little kit, and I keep it either in my backpack if I'm going to work, or I keep it in my little purse. I have one in each because I forget all the time. And it's sort of like, your reusable grocery bags, just keeping it in a place where you're gonna forget about it, but hey, it's something that you have on hand with you all the time. So found that helpful.
Will you hand me my fanny pack?
yours is nice.
I'm just gonna show it. I mean, I don't get to show this off often, but
bandanas make great travel napkins.
I have a giant fanny pack, and right here in my reusable bag, I have one on the other side usually, but it's in use right now. And then on the inside, I have cha-ching.
This is so fancy. It's so
That's
pretty.
It's like iridescent. I don't usually do a product placement, but Eco Vessel, they're amazing.
They're Jeff and Paige, so it's rainbow colors.
Sponsored by Eco.
It's not sponsored by anyone.
I'm gonna touch in on that too and just say, for me, it's the frisbee at a party or at like a pizza place, and it's not just because like it is saving a compostable way, like it is saving something that would have been thrown in the compost or the landfill or the recycling, but it also is funny. And it like you go to a pizza at a Cosmos Pizza, like, oh, we got a slice of cheese on a frisbee coming up, and like I feel like it makes. So for me, for anyone who knows me, that's my jam. That it's a little education piece and it's funny and it works.
And then you always wash it, right?
It's pretty clean.
It's pretty clean.
So
I'm still here.
We're gonna wrap things up. Thank you so much for attending this question and answer session. There's so many resources on the websites we mentioned, and follow Jeff and Paige on all our social media channels. Follow the City of Boulder Climate Initiatives. We're gonna be putting out tons of content over the course of the next year, both encouraging the changes that need to happen and celebrating the new outcomes that come from those changes that feel like they've been forced, but which maybe will result in a better system going forward. And I want to share that my most hopeful tool and idea of all of this is that I live in a place where there is a city that cares about this, and there are people that are actually working to create systems so that we don't have to bring our stuff everywhere we go.
Yeah.
Yes, that's great. Yes, keep doing it. I'm going to keep doing it. And with a lot of the stuff coming online, like Deliver Zero and Our Cup and more things that will be in the future, we won't have to think so hard, and it will just happen, but not without your support. So can we do a round of applause for the City of Boulder? Climate Initiatives and Jeff and Paige. Circle.
And Jeff and Paige fans, you are going to hear a zero waste song on our upcoming album to be released this summer. It's called No Biggie, and you can hear how we put that across in a fun way for kids.
Please reach out if you have other questions. We are all available to answer them.
City of Boulder folks, any final thoughts to add in?
Just follow the City of Boulder social media accounts. Most of them. Yes, we have some other creative audio works coming online too. We also have a climate e-newsletter, which you can find on our website. If you just go to our website and you search Climate Initiatives Newsletter, there's tons of great updates on there, along with all sorts of other climate stories and things. So yeah, tons of information. Check out our website too. We post all of our stories there, and it's a great source of information and how-to guides for reuse and compost and all sorts of things.
And if you're on our email list, we'll send you all of this stuff too. If you're not, you can get on it at jeffandpage.org, but we'll make sure to put that work in there.
Sounds good.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye.
Sustainability.
Just hold.